Altamont people may or may not
Forgot to
have seen me
shut
over the
some
years.
clubs.
I came here in 1966 to the university to help set up the geography department. And almost immediately, the first person I met in our building was Nancy Little, who was striving to put together the art collection that was to be installed, not in that building, as you just heard. So I wanted to be sure to mention, I know that Chuck Little is here. That was one of the first great moments of my life, and it was related surely to the work that Ed was embarking upon. But most important, something that has not been mentioned yet, is that Ed also had another dimension of his life that was tremendously important and became formative in my own career, and that was to set up an environmental studies program, which was a multidisciplinary program at the State University, and also involved RPI and Union and St. Rose, I'm not sure, but a number of other universities in the Capital District. Lou Ismay is here. I spoke earlier with John Scott, who was instrumental in that. Don McKinley was a faculty member also. But that was a very inspiring moment in my life. I was very privileged to participate in starting that center and carrying it forward, and it meant much in the development of my own career, which spans about 35 or 40 years working in the environment. So I thank Ed for his vision, his humor, his great patience dealing with the university, polity, and community in holding that together. Also, I should mention another person who was involved in that, who recently passed away, Professor Richard Kelly, who was also an inspiration to me. But I thank Ed very much for the twinkle in his eye and the great spirit that he brought.
Thank you.
My name is Melissa Hale Spencer. I'm the editor of the Altamont Enterprise, and I got to know Ed because after he spoke at Cindy's Homefront, you've just heard about that a bit, talking to children about war, he came into the newspaper and said, you know, he thought there's some things people should know, and he wrote a series of columns, and it was a thrill, because as his daughter said, he cared about words so much, and he'd bring them in handwritten, they looked like artwork, and piece things together. And then he did a second series about art, and he hung art around the village in different places. One was right here, the VFW, and he loved to quote. One of the members here said, that looks more like the Post than the Post. So I wrote an elegy for Ed Cowley. I woke at 6 o'clock today to find that all the world was gray. The leaves, the trees, the sky, and I were held in bleak October sway. But when you paint a sullen sky, there's more than gray to greet the eye. Your subtle hues are rich and vast, as radiant light makes hope feel nigh. Your wife, your love, plucks treasures from your past. Your life has ended, what will last? Your grace, your words, your wit, your art, these are things we will hold fast. Shamrock, horseshoe, bronze star, glass mart, of the whole each were a part. But from the start it was your heart. What matters most, it is your heart.
Thank you. Wow. That was nice.
My name is Lou Ismay. My name is Lou Ismay. Met Ed 1957. An important friend in my life. Ed probably never did realize the importance of what he created. Steve just mentioned it. It was known around the country before Earth Day. It actually started to operate in 1969. 2.5 or 3 years before that, I was starting a new job, my first day at work, ready to leave the house. Received a phone call from the personnel department at SUNY. would I be interested if money was found to run the program? My answer was yes. Money was found, and we literally started in 1 week. Now, it's not important except to say that it was known in England, it was known in Israel, it was known in the new university in northern Germany. I don't remember, it was Bremen or wherever it was. But the word spread, and the students spread the word through a Protect Your Environment Club. It's affected the lives of many on thousands, because occasionally there's a message from somebody in what they're doing, so it's spread. But more important, the memory of Ed. And I'll tell it in some of the paintings that I remember hanging in the outdoors on the trees. These were, if you haven't, many of you probably, some of you probably had not seen them, but they were painted on pieces of cardboard, sometimes large or small. One had to do with matching socks, and the title was True Conservatives Wear Matching Socks. Another one about Willie Horton. He was a criminal, he was in jail, and Ed had a picture of representation of Willie behind bars, and Willie had his thoughts about banks, and the title was, right, why did you do this, or something like that, but the answer was, because the money, that's where the money is, in the banks. That's why he robbed the banks. And Ed was aware of the issue of hard hats versus long hairs, which raged sometime around the 1970s. Long hairs were the guys who were the tree huggers, and the hard hats were the working men who opposed that. Ed's comment on that issue was a picture of a Viking with horns on the head, and the title was Hard Heads and Long Hairs, talking about the combination. I can remember Ed sitting there in the evening sometimes, whatever, just being present, and in the background you could hear clink, clink, as the horseshoes hit the peg. And Ed, Don Moshon drew a cartoon about Ed Cowley. It was a time when there was another kind of strike. And it showed a German soldier with the typical World War I spiked helmet, and a British soldier with the typical little hard hat that they wore at that time. And the title was, We'll Agree, no matter who wins this war, we won't let Ed Cowley into our veterans organization. VFW allowed that, you're welcome. So he was very proud. He had peas on the table, growing in his garden, before anybody else could make that statement in the area. He had to be number one. He went through a phase at one time painting some marvelous designs on golf tees. That was about the time they took up golf as a hobby. And he had the art department had a golf team that challenged others in the area, not just in the area, but in other parts of the state too. The railroad station was his idea to save it. And then Many contributed $100 to buy a bond, to buy the station, and for $5,000, and a lot of hard work. We had a mayor at the time, Larry Warner. I remember Larry being up on the roof. He was the only one who readily available who knew how to repair slate roofs, and that's what he did. But there was strife in the village at one time. Ed conceived the idea of having flower boxes at the entrance to the village, every road, with a welcoming sign. The flower boxes were frequently destroyed, vandalism. Larry Warner and his sons stayed up all night long repairing the boxes so that in the morning they would be in place around the village. It'd be kind of nice to have that happen in the village again. And the last thing probably was his sense of humor. And the way Steve mentioned it, the way he dealt with the administration at the university was just marvelous. I was in the office one day, Tom Marchand, and Ed called, asked us to come in. One of the professors was there. The new dean was on the phone, questioning why there were so many A's and A pluses in this professor's class. And the conversation went back and forth. And answer was given. Ed was the only one on the phone. And there was discussion about academic quality and so forth. And Ed's response to the dean, the parting thing, just before he hung up, and it might happen again, which startled the dean, but did end the conversation. So a little bit of my memories of Ed, and there are probably others with memories of the paintings and so forth. Thanks for listening.
May I? Just on what you said? Sure. I think you're gonna all hear me. I bought that poster. Okay. I have it. It's 1 minute away. And as soon as we break for the bar, I will walk through my backyard and I will bring that poster for you. What it says is, the Vikings wore long hair and hard hats as well. Okay, that was before it was popular. Okay, I have it. I'll bring it here. No smoker, and I live right over there. Thank you.
Great.
Great picture.
I'm Nancy Murphy. I'm one Mrs. Murphy. The other Mrs. Murphy sat over here next to the VFW for 8 years while Doc put this book together with much encouragement from Ed. He was there at least 2 or 3 times a week, checking on the progress, which sometimes was not too good, and sometimes, well, when the boat fell over, that wasn't too good either. But he was a wonderful friend to Doc and me, and he made 3 stained glass windows for our boat, which when we sold the boat, or when we gave it away actually, we had taken out. And he was a wonderful man, a sense of humor, and Doc and he were like kindred Murphy Irish souls. And Ed also helped me break the sex barrier by joining the horseshoe pit. He encouraged that, so I did it. Some guys weren't too happy, but that's too bad.
My name is Richard Kropp. I'm a foreigner from the city of Albany. And I went to the Milne School, and in 1952 I was yearbook editor, and Ed came up from Columbia and became yearbook advisor. And we played golf together with Jim Cochran. I don't know if you remember Jim, the English professor. And Ed was a great horseshoe player, a great teacher, a great artist. when it comes to golf, that's another question. But he had a very creative golf game, and usually the ball would land in front of him rather than behind him. I have in my living room a abstract of a golf course that Ed gave me for when I graduated from medical school, and I really treasure that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm John Scott. I don't want to keep you from the meatloaf or the beer. But a couple of things haven't been said about Ed. We all know he was one of the greatest organizers ever. He organized the Horseshoe League, a golf league at the university, which is still going on. It's called the State Swingers. And the secretary of the league, it's diminishing quite a bit. But I first met Ed on the golf course. And he would organize 2 foursomes every week. I think it was Friday. And the bet was a dime a hole. And after about 6 or 7 years, I said to Ed, don't you think we maybe should raise it to a quarter? And he said, no, a dime is traditional. We have to keep it in the family. I spent time with Ed at Farm Neck Golf Course. Martha's Vineyard. He had a little, the Cowleys had a little camp on the campgrounds there. We started out paying $17. Ed would get us on as members. When Clinton started playing there, and now Obama, it's up over $100 to play that now. I think it's probably more by now. Ed organized quite a few things at the university. One of them was the Environmental Decisions Commission, which tried to impose restrictions on what could be done environmentally at the campus. We managed to save the little pond that was there. They were going to put the alumni house right next to the pond. And the lasting memory of that commission, he got me to be the chair of that commission a few years later, was the speed bumps, and they're still there. But the environmental studies program started with Ed and Lou Ismay. Lou Ismay ran the Environmental Forum, which in my opinion was the best course ever at the University at Albany. He brought in guest speakers from all around the region, very good speakers, and Lou would stay with the students hour after hour into the wee hours of the evening. I just wanted to mention mainly about Ed's golf. I also played golf with him down at St. Simon's Island, which was stayed there for a few days, which was nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Harvey Whitehouse. Everything's been said about Ed is just great from a personal perspective. He was pretty much instrumental in so many different individual stories in the village, and ours was one of them. My mom and dad started the Altamont Manor in 1964, and things were a little tough. It was a new place, and back then, this Altamont was really more considered out in the boondocks, and it was always tough getting people up there. And Ed came up with Betty, and they really loved it, and they struck up such a rapport with Mom and Dad. And it was almost like a mission for him as he went back to the university. I sort of think of Ed as a pebble. You drop it in the pond, and the ripples just kept going out further and further and further. And I think he was, as much as anyone, responsible for the success of the manor and the ability for us to then, as the next generation, to take that and keep it going. Slightly different venue, but nonetheless, it's still the Altamont Manor, and I think Ed, more than anyone, was responsible for that, and I just wanted to say thank you on a personal level for his particular efforts.
Thanks, Ed.
My name is Norman Swanson. I have my PhD, and I mention that because I went to Albany State Teachers College in 1958 after 4 years in the Navy and a year and a half of college, and I was married. And some of you may have heard of my wife, Shirley Swanson, who taught kindergarten and first grade here from 58 to 61, and then moved down to Westmere Elementary. She's deceased in almost 20 years. But when I came in 58, I think Ed was the only art teacher there, and then Bill Wilson came like in 1960, and he was quite a character himself. But I used to listen to, when I was studying math, I didn't want to be a math teacher, and it turns out that I took art, as many classes as I could while I was there, and I really learned a lot from him. In fact, I kind of copied his style with the lines all drawn in, and since I taught mathematics, ended up at Hudson Valley Community College, and I do numbers with the style here of Ed. I have two of his pictures at home up on the wall, a huge one, bigger than that one, and then a pastel of the Altamont Fair buildings in there. And I think the picture that is bigger than this one's oil, but I think it's Main Street, or Maple Avenue, I guess it was. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, I'm going along, and I'm enjoying art, and math was a little more difficult to do than art, but I thought of changing to become an art teacher. And the trouble is, because I was married and all that, and I'd lost almost a year of credits because they wouldn't take math as a thing, and I'd have to move, we'd have to move to the college. I ran out of my head right now. I can't think. I had to move to another college to finish up, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because I really love art, and I was 10 years the president of Albany Artists Group. I just gave it up a year ago. But, so I've done art and math all my life, so to speak, and I've developed a few problems, but part of it is short-term memory loss here as I look around. I just turned 80 a month ago, so, and being a math person, my 65th birthday was on 9/9/99. Can't get better than 999s, I figure. And what happens is only 12 times in the course of a century, when if you're born on 111 or 222 or 333, and I happen to be one of those, I thought mathematically that's great. What was I going to say? Oh, September, I guess you know, I'm ad-libbing here a little now. September means 7, October means 8, November means 9, December means 10. But we obviously have shifted 2 months, and that's because the Romans only had 10 months of the year named, and then they left it blank in what we call January, February, so when the Caesars came in, they shifted everything. But also September is the only month with 9 letters in it, and it's the only month that has the same number of letters in it as does the month that it is. In other words, May is the 5th, but May is only 3 letters, something like that. But that's kind of trivia I like to
I never knew that.
talk about. And so anyway,
That's pretty neat.
when I told my wife, Shirley, about going to art school and all that, and I said, I don't think we can do it. And she says, well, take it as an avocation, not a vocation. Stay with mathematics, and I'm glad I did because our teachers weren't too good off. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say was I took all these classes, and I got my bachelor's and my master's, and then when I got my doctorate, I came over, I got a sabbatical from Hudson Valley in 84, 85, and I had only 12 hours I had to take each semester, so I filled in with glass, stained glass from his teaching that he had, and I learned how to do stained glass. But then the minute he retired, I think it was 87, they got rid of the whole glass program. I don't think it ever came back. As soon as he went out the door, so did the stained glass classes go out the door. But it really grew tremendously over the years. So, okay, that's some of my memories I've been thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Well,
I'm ready for this.